Another architect at the leading edge of this technological synthesis of speculation and actual construction is Ron Arad, whose design and architectural work seethes with the energy of modern art. But whilst drawing is still at the heart of everything he creates, by also using computer design software, his forward-thinking designs stand a chance of actually making it into reality.
I always thought, as an arrogant student, that you can only design what you can draw. You know, if you can't draw, how can you design? It's different now with computers, because you can design things that you couldn't possibly draw.
Ron was very influenced in his early days both by Mark Fisher and by Archigram. As the possibilities of architecture and design opened up with new tools and materials, so Arad's designs have mutated and evolved, constantly adapting to an ever-changing technological environment. But like any architect hoping to stay at the forefront of his field, he's had to change the way he works very noticeably during his career.
In the old days, there was, you know, the drawings, and then the drafting, the technical drawings, and then there used to be the artisans, the model makers that make the prototypes. Now with computers and computer drawings and computer models, there's no middleman.
The computer really has transformed design, and it's perhaps the biggest difference between the world Leonardo lived in and the world that Ron Arad lives in now. Using its power, he and his team of architects can turn a sketch relatively painlessly into a 3D computer model and fully detailed architectural plans. I met Jeff Crowther, one of Ron's most senior architects. It's part of his job to create a solid framework within which the clients and the architects can both work together.
We'll spend a lot of time exchanging information, exchanging letters, saying questions, is this what you want? And then they'll say, no, this is how we want it. And it boils down at the end to something as concise and almost schematic as possible.
And is that your starting point, or have you already by this point had a drawing from Ron?
Generally, we'll start with this because the problem with just sketching in a purely creative way is potentially quite wasteful.
Too disengaged from the needs.
Too disengaged, and you could end up with something beautiful and fantastic, and you look at it, but you just can't make it work.
The first schematic diagram is turned into a picture of basic building blocks, purely to show how the building might function. When does Ron get his hands on it?
This is where Ron and the team of architects will work very closely together. So this is one of the critical moments in bringing the more conceptual, sketchy side of it into this very dry building block side of it. We don't use traditional mediums, so it's not using pencils and paper. Ron has a sketch pad, which is a digital sketching pad.
I was surprised that Ron's sketch comes at this stage, when lots of practical decisions have already been made. So although these sketches may look like fantasy, there's a lot of practical information already contained within them. What happens after that sketch?
This is the starting to sketch in 3D work. So Ron and the team will be working together, and you'll be starting to just move things around in 3 dimensions to start to get an understanding of how you want to build this thing.
For all that that's on a computer and it shows a very space-age building, to me, it's still essentially a Renaissance perspective drawing.
Yes, but the difference is that instead of being a single point of view, we have infinite points of view. It can be viewed from any place, so that we can move through the building, we can turn it upside down, we can turn it inside out even.
I'd assumed that was the end of it. How much more sophisticated could it get? But I was again surprised to learn that the final stage was what looked like simple, old-fashioned, two-dimensional drawings. So your builders and engineers and the people who have to construct the building itself, they still end up with traditional plan, section, elevation, architectural drawings?
Mm-hmm. That's right, absolutely.
Is this produced by an engineer or by
No, this is produced by us as architects.
Yeah.
So this is traditional architectural output. This is the way that architects have, you know, for hundreds of years described a building. And it's the way we probably will continue to describe buildings for quite a long time, is in two-dimensional pieces of paper.
The information available to Ron and Jeff on the computer is pretty much instantaneous. Can the tensile strength of a particular metal sustain that level of curve? Will glass panels stay in with a given wind force? And so on. None of this information was available to Leonardo, and I can't help wondering what he'd have achieved with this level of backup. Having seen the process by which Ron's ideas turn into something buildable, I was struck by just how much the computer enables architects to tackle at once. Ron's projects seem to be everywhere.
I'm in the middle of one that is, for me, it's already a piece in its own right, which is the Battersea Power Station. Yes, there are some archigram elements there. Yes, there is a bit of walking city in there. There's lots of, like, you know, what technology can do to spaces, and look, we are living in a new century and all that. It's there.
The hotel proposed for the top of London's Battersea Power Station is a typically way-out Ron Arad project, clearly continuing in the tradition of fantasy architectural drawing. It reminds me of the space-age designs of Archigram in the 60s, but I also think there are distant echoes here of the monumental labyrinthine fantasies of Piranesi. We've seen how technology and computers transform the drawings of people like Mark Fisher and Ron Arad into a high-tech, high-budget world of construction. But not every field of design is so dependent on technology.